News of the disaster at New Boston reached the Krillian homeworld within hours. Emperor Vextar sat in his throne room reading reports that seemed impossible. Entire invasion fleets had been destroyed or captured by human forces that shouldn't exist. His greatest admirals were sending desperate requests for reinforcements. How is this possible? Vextar demanded of his intelligence chief. Every report said humans were weak traders with minimal military capability. My emperor, the reports were accurate based on all visible evidence, the intelligence officer replied nervously. Human ships appeared to be cargo vessels in research craft. Their colonies showed no military installations. Their diplomats always sought peaceful solutions. Then explain how they destroyed 60 battle cruisers in a single day. The truth was becoming clear, but none of the Krillian leadership wanted to admit it. Humanity had deceived the entire galaxy for 50 years. While other species saw weak merchants and peaceful explorers, humans had been building the most powerful military force in known space. Meanwhile, in the human command center on Earth, Admiral Sam Collins was coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. The Terra Defense Force was no longer hiding. Ships emerged from secret bases throughout human territory. Production facilities that had been disguised as civilian factories began manufacturing weapons and equipment at an incredible rate. Status report. Admiral Collins requested from his staff. All theater commanders report ready for full operations. His aide replied. The Krillian invasion forces are trapped in our space with no retreat route. We have them exactly where we want them. What about the rest of the galaxy? Federation headquarters is in chaos. They're demanding explanations for our hidden military build-up. Several member species are requesting immediate diplomatic meetings. Collins nodded. The political situation would be complicated later. Right now, his job was to end the Krillian threat permanently. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment. They would not waste the opportunity. Begin Operation Sledgehammer, he ordered. Across human space, the counterattack began. What the Krillians had thought would be an easy conquest became their worst nightmare. Human forces struck back with overwhelming superiority in every category that mattered. The technology gap was devastating. Krillian weapons that had terrified other species barely scratched human shields. Human weapons cut through Krillian armor, like it was made of paper. Even worse, human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, coordinated by communication systems that seemed immune to all jamming attempts. But technology was only part of humanity's advantage. The real shock was how they fought. Other species in the galaxy viewed war as a way to gain territory or resources. They fought until they achieved specific goals, then negotiated peace. Humans fought differently. When someone attacked them, they didn't just fight to win the current battle. They fought to ensure their enemies could never threaten them again. Ever. The Krillian Fleet Admiral Korthak, trapped near New Boston with the survivors of his invasion force, learned this the hard way. He had surrendered after losing most of his ships, expecting to be treated as a prisoner of war according to galactic convention. Instead, human forces began systematically hunting down every Krillian military installation they could find. Not just in human space, throughout Krillian territory, bases, shipyards, weapons factories, command centers, all were targeted for destruction. This is madness, Korthak protested to his human captors. We surrendered. The fighting should be over. Jake Morrison, now promoted to captain after his escape, visited the Krillian admiral in his detention cell. Admiral, your empire didn't just attack one of our ships. You declared war on all of humanity. You stated your intention to conquer our territory and enslave our people. But we failed. The invasion is over. No, Jake said quietly. The invasion was just the beginning. Now comes the part where we make sure you can never try this again. Throughout Krillian space, human forces struck with surgical precision. Their intelligence was perfect. They knew exactly where every important military target was located. 50 years of careful observation had given them detailed maps of every enemy installation. More human capabilities were revealed with each passing day. Ships that could travel faster than anything previously known. Weapons that could destroy, targets from impossible distances, soldiers who fought with enhanced abilities that seemed superhuman. The enhanced abilities weren't an accident. Humanity had learned from their first contact with aliens that they were physically weaker than most species, so they had fixed that problem. Genetic engineering, cybernetic implants, performance-enhancing drugs, whatever it took to make human soldiers superior to any opponent. Lisa Chang demonstrated this during a boarding action on a Krillian supply depot. She moved through corridors full of enemy soldiers with speed that looked impossible to the watching aliens. Her reflexes allowed her to dodge weapons fire while returning accurate shots of her own. When she ran out of ammunition, she fought, hand-to-hand against opponents twice her size, and won. The Krillians began to understand that they weren't fighting the same species that had joined the Federation 50 years ago. These humans were something new and terrifying, a race that had transformed itself into perfect warriors while pretending to be harmless traitors. Tony Rodriguez showed another aspect of human enhancement during the assault on a Krillian communications hub. His cybernetic implants allowed him to interface directly with alien computer systems. He could hack their networks in real time, turning their own defenses against them. "How are they doing this?" a captured Krillian technician asked after watching. Tony disabled an entire base with a few keystrokes. "Our security systems were designed to be unhackable. You designed them to stop attacks from known species using known methods," Tony replied. "You never considered that someone might spend decades learning every detail of your technology while developing specifically designed countermeasures. That was humanity's real secret weapon. Not just their advanced technology or enhanced soldiers, but their patience. While other species fought wars that lasted months or years, humans had been preparing for a conflict that might last decades. They had built for the long term, accepting short-term weakness in exchange for overwhelming long-term strength. The results spoke for themselves. Within weeks, the Krillian military was in complete collapse. Their fleets were destroyed, their bases captured or demolished, their communication networks disrupted. What had been one of the galaxy's most feared military powers was reduced to scattered survivors hiding in remote systems. Emperor Vextar, watching his empire crumble from his heavily defended homeworld, finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The humans his scouts had dismissed as weak traitors were actually apex predators. They had been studying every potential threat in the galaxy, while building the forces needed to eliminate those threats permanently. "Send a message to the human leadership," he ordered his communication officer. "Offer them anything they want. Territory, tribute, hostages. We must have peace." "What if they refuse, my emperor?" Vextar looked at the tactical displays showing human forces approaching his homeworld. Their ships moved in perfect formation, completely ignoring Krillian attempts to stop them. Soon they would be in orbit over the planet that had ruled an empire for centuries. Then we discover whether they are conquerors like us or something even worse. The answer was coming soon. Human ships had surrounded the Krillian homeworld, trapping the remnants of their fleet in a defensive formation that could not hold against the approaching assault. Emperor Vexistar would soon face Admiral Collins directly and learn what humanity really intended for those who made the mistake of provoking them. The galaxy watched in shocked silence as the most feared military power in known space was systematically destroyed by opponents they had dismissed as harmless. Every alien government was recalculating their relationship with humanity, wondering what other capabilities they had hidden. The age of underestimating humans was ending. What would replace it depended entirely on what humanity chose to do with their newly revealed power. The final confrontation above the Krillian homeworld would show the galaxy whether humans were conquerors, protectors, or something entirely different. The message from Jake's beacon reached Earth after traveling through several relay stations. It arrived at Federation headquarters first, where alien officials read it with mild concern. Another border incident with an aggressive species. They would file a diplomatic protest and hope for the best. But the same message also reached a much more secret destination. Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, President Helen Carter stood in the command center of Project Lazarus. The room was filled with screens showing military positions across human space. Officers worked quietly at control stations that could coordinate the movements of entire fleets. Code Black confirmed, reported General Bobby Collins, head of Terra, Defense Force. All stations are responding. Full awakening is in progress. Helen Carter had hoped this day would never come. For 50 years, humanity had maintained the illusion of being a peaceful and weak species. They had hidden their true military capabilities behind a facade of harmless exploration and trade. Now that facade was about to be destroyed forever. How long until all units are fully operational? She asked. 18 hours for complete deployment, the general replied. But we can begin defensive operations in 6 hours. Do it, Helen said. And Bobby? Make sure the other Federation members see what happens when someone attacks humanity. It's time they learned who they're really dealing with. Across human space, the awakening began. On colony worlds that appeared to be simple farming, communities' hidden weapon systems rose from underground bunkers. Orbital platforms that had been disguised as research stations revealed massive gun batteries. Cargo ships opened secret compartments to show military-grade weapons and armor. Most importantly, the hidden fleet emerged from its hiding places. 2,000 warships had been waiting in asteroid fields and nebulae for decades. They were equipped with technology that the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed, shields that could stop any known weapon, engines that could outrun anything in space, weapons that could crack planets. The Krillian invasion force was heading toward the human colony of New Boston. Intelligence reports had described it as a farming world with about 50,000 peaceful settlers. No military defenses, no orbital platforms. An easy first target that would demoralize human resistance. Fleet Admiral Korthak commanded the attack force from his massive flagship. He had brought 30 battlecruisers to crush one small colony. It seemed like overkill, but he wanted to send a clear message to the rest of humanity. Sir, we're approaching the New Boston system, his navigation officer reported. No defensive fleet detected, no orbital weapons, just as our intelligence predicted. Korthak studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The human colony sat helplessly before his overwhelming force. This would be over quickly. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target all military installations first, then civilian centers. Leave enough survivors to tell other humans what happens to those who resist us. The Krillian ships moved into attack formation and approached New Boston. What they found there changed everything. The peaceful farming colony suddenly revealed defensive platforms that shouldn't exist. Massive weapons batteries rose from hidden positions on the planet's surface. Ships that had been identified as cargo freighters dropped their disguises to show advanced military designs. Sir, the tactical officer called out in panic. We're detecting over 100 human warships in the system. They weren't there on our sensors a moment ago. Impossible, Korthak snarled. Human ships are slow and weakly armed. Run full scans. The new readings showed ships unlike anything in Krillian databases. They moved with incredible speed and precision. Their energy signatures suggested weapons and shields far beyond known human technology. Worst of all, more ships were arriving, every minute. Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet, the communications officer reported. Put it on screen, Korthak ordered. The face that appeared was human, but not the weak traitor type the Krillians expected. This was clearly a military officer with hard eyes and a confident expression. Stars on his collar showed high rank. I am Admiral Sam Collins of the Terra Defense Force, the human said calmly. You have entered human space with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Korthak laughed, though he felt less confident than he sounded. Human, you are outnumbered. We have 30 battle cruisers against your pathetic fleet. Actually, Collins replied with a cold smile, you have 30 ships against over 300. And that number is growing every minute. This is your only warning. Leave now. The Krillian admiral looked at his tactical display again. The human was right. Ships were appearing from every direction. Some came from behind asteroids where sensors couldn't detect them. Others seemed to materialize from empty space using some kind of advanced cloaking technology. All ships attack formation, Korthak ordered. Show these humans how real warriors fight. The battle that followed shocked everyone who witnessed it. The Krillians had expected to face weak opponents with inferior technology. Instead, they encountered a military force that had been designed specifically to counter their tactics. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, their communications apparently immune to Krillian jamming attempts. Their weapons cut through Krillian shields like they were paper. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know exactly how Krillian ships would respond to each attack. "Sir, they're anticipating our every move," the tactical officer reported as another Krillian cruiser exploded. "It's like they've been studying our combat doctrine for years." That was exactly what had happened. For decades, human intelligence services had been gathering information about every major military power in the galaxy. They knew how each species fought, what weapons they used, what their weaknesses were. When the shooting started, humans had every possible advantage. Within an hour, half the Krillian fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors were trapped by human ships that moved faster than anything they had ever seen. Korithak realized that his intelligence about human capabilities had been completely wrong. "Sir, urgent message from the homeworld," his communications officer said. "All invasion fleets are reporting similar situations. Human forces are appearing everywhere with advanced technology and superior tactics." Korithak felt ice in his veins. This wasn't a local defense. This was a coordinated military response from a species that had been hiding its true strength. Every assumption about human weakness had been wrong. On Terra's Pride, still docked with Zexthan's ship, Karen Bell was making her move. The chaos of battle had distracted most of the guards. Her cybernetic implants had finished mapping the enemy ship's systems. It was time to act. She sent a signal through the ship's communication network that looked like routine maintenance data. In reality, it was a virus designed specifically for Krillian computers. Within minutes, doors began opening throughout the ship. Weapon systems went offline. Life support started failing in non-essential areas. Jake and his crew broke out of their cells as the energy fields flickered and died. They moved quickly through corridors filled with confused Krillian soldiers. Tony had managed to grab weapons from a supply room that Karen's virus had unlocked. The escape wasn't easy. Even with their ship failing around them, the Krillians fought fiercely. But Jake's crew had advantages the enemy didn't expect. Lisa moved with reflexes that were clearly enhanced beyond normal human limits. Tony's accuracy with alien weapons was impossibly perfect. They reached Terra's Pride and began emergency startup procedures. The ship's systems came online just as Krillian soldiers arrived to stop them. But it was too late. Terra's Pride broke free from the docking clamps and accelerated away from the enemy vessel. "Sir," Lisa reported as they cleared the immediate area, "I'm detecting multiple human ships approaching our position. Looks like the cavalry has arrived." Jake looked at the tactical display and smiled for the first time in days. Sleek human warships surrounded the remaining Krillian vessels. The enemy was trapped with no hope of escape. Their invasion force had been crushed by opponents they had dismissed as harmless. "Open a channel to the Krillian flagship," Jake ordered. Zexthan's face appeared on screen. The arrogant captain from earlier was gone. This Krillian looked scared and confused. "You lied to me," Zexthan accused. "You said humans were weak." "No," Jake replied calmly. "I told you exactly what our public capabilities were. You assumed that was everything we had. That was your mistake." The transmission ended as human ships closed in on the enemy vessel. The first phase of humanity's response was complete. They had revealed their true strength to the galaxy and proven that attacking them was a fatal error. But this was just the beginning. The Krillians had started a war with a species that had been preparing for this exact scenario for 50 years. Now they would learn why humanity's patience was their most dangerous weapon. The Krillian soldiers burst through the bridge doors with weapons ready. They were even bigger than Jake had expected. Each one stood over 7 feet tall and wore thick armor that covered their natural scales. Their yellow eyes scanned the bridge for threats but found none. Jake and his crew sat quietly with their hands visible. They had followed prisoner protocols exactly. No sudden movements, no attempts to fight. just calm cooperation that would keep them alive. The lead soldier spoke, into a communication device on his wrist. Within minutes, Captain Zexton himself entered the bridge. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Battle scars covered his face and arms. Old weapon marks showed through gaps in his armor. This was a warrior who had seen many fights. "So these are the mighty humans," Zexathon said with amusement. "You look even weaker than our intelligence reports suggested." Jake said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence was often the best response when dealing with aggressive species. Let them talk. Let them reveal their plans. Information was always useful. "Take them to the detention cells on my ship," Zexathon ordered his soldiers. "I want to question them about human military capabilities." The Krillians bound Jake and his crew with energy shackles. The devices locked around their wrists and ankles with a soft humming sound. Any attempt to remove them would deliver a painful shock. They were then marched through the boarding tubes to the Krillian battlecruiser. The enemy ship was much larger than Terra's Pride. Dark corridors stretched in all directions. Red lights gave everything a bloody appearance. The air smelled of metal and something Jake couldn't identify. Probably Krillian food or body odor. They were taken to a detention area deep in the ship. Each crew member was locked in a separate cell. The walls were made of some kind of energy field that would stop any escape attempt. Guards were posted outside to watch them constantly. Jake was brought to a different area for questioning. The room was large and empty except for 2 chairs. Zexathon sat in one and gestured for Jake to take the other. 2 guards stood by the door with weapons ready. "Now, human, we will discuss your military forces," Zexathon said. "Tell me about your fleet strength. How many warships do you have? Where are your main bases located?" Jake decided to tell the truth. It would be more believable than any lie he could create. "Humanity maintains a small defensive fleet, about 200 ships spread across our territory. Most are patrol vessels or cargo escorts. We have no major military installations." Zexthon leaned forward with interest. "Only 200 ships? For all of human space?" "We prefer peaceful solutions to problems," Jake said. "Our ships are designed for exploration and trade, not warfare." This was technically true. Most human ships that other species could see were exactly as Jake described. The Krillians had no way to know about the hidden fleet that humanity had been building for decades. 2,000 heavily armed warships waited in asteroid fields and nebulae throughout human territory. They were invisible to most sensors and completely unknown to alien intelligence services. "What about ground defenses?" Zexthon asked. "Military, bases, weapon manufacturing facilities?" "Our colonies focus on civilian industries," Jake answered honestly. "We have some security forces, but nothing that could stop a military invasion." Again, this was true from a certain point of view. Human colonies appeared to be peaceful farming and mining communities. What the Krillians didn't know was that every facility could be converted to military production within hours. Every colonist had received combat training. Every building was designed with hidden defensive positions. Zexthon sat back in his chair and smiled. His sharp teeth gleamed in the red light. "Excellent. This will be even easier than we hoped. My scouts reported that humans were weak, but I wanted to hear it from one of your officers." "Why are you doing this?" Jake asked. "Humanity has never threatened the Krillian Empire." "Because you are weak and we are strong," Zexthon replied. "In this galaxy, the weak serve the strong or they die. Your species has been pretending to be equal to real warriors for too long." Jake nodded as if he understood. Inside, he was counting the hours since he had activated his beacon. The message should reach human space soon. When it did, everything would change. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Karen Bell was making her own preparations. The Krillians had searched her for weapons but missed the small cybernetic implants hidden under her skin. They looked like medical devices to help with an old injury. In reality, they were advanced communication and hacking tools. Karen activated the implants with a thought. Invisible signals began probing the Krillian ship's computer systems. She had to be very careful. If the enemy detected her activities, they would kill her immediately. The ship's security was strong but not perfect. Karen found several weak points in their network architecture. She began copying files and transmitting them to a hidden relay beacon she had left on Terra's Pride. The information would eventually reach human intelligence services, fleet positions, ship designs, weapon capabilities, invasion plans. Karen gathered everything she could find. The Krillians were planning a massive assault on human space. Dozens of battle groups were moving into position. They expected to conquer humanity within months. What they didn't expect was resistance from a species they had dismissed as harmless, traitors. Back in the interrogation room, Zexton was finishing his questions. He seemed very pleased with Jake's answers. The human military sounded pathetically weak. The conquest would be glorious and profitable. One more question, Zexton said. Do humans have any secret weapons? Advanced technology that you might use in desperation? Jake thought carefully before answering. We have some experimental projects, but nothing that could stop your empire. Humans are not a warlike species. We solve problems with negotiation and compromise. This was perhaps the biggest lie Jake had ever told, but Zexton believed it completely. The Krillian captain had already decided that humans were weak. Any information that confirmed his prejudices sounded true to him. Very good, Zexton said as he stood up. You will remain here as our prisoner. Soon you will watch as your species learns to kneel before the Krillian Empire. Jake was returned to his cell where he found his crew waiting nervously. They couldn't speak freely with guards listening, but Jake gave them subtle hand signals. Stay calm. Stick to the plan. Help was coming. Hours passed slowly in the detention area. The guards changed shifts but never left their posts completely. Jake and his crew were given water and some kind of nutritional paste that tasted terrible. They were prisoners of war now, but they were also the first pieces in a much larger game that was about to begin. Somewhere in human space, military commanders were receiving urgent messages. Secret facilities were coming online. Hidden ships were leaving their hiding places. The Krillian Empire thought they were hunting helpless prey. They had no idea they had just awakened something that had been waiting patiently for exactly this moment. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to appear weak while growing strong. The galaxy was about to learn why provoking humans was always a fatal mistake. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Pride and watched the stars through the main screen. The ship moved quietly through space in the Vega sector. This was their 5th day of routine survey work. Nothing exciting ever happened on these missions. That was exactly how Jake liked it. His crew worked at their stations around him. Lisa Chang sat at navigation and checked their course for the 100th time that day. Tony Rodriguez monitored the weapon systems even though they never expected to use them. Karen Bell was down in engineering, making sure everything ran smoothly. They were a good team and had worked together for 3 years. The Galactic Federation had sent them here to map new star systems and look for planets that might be useful later. Humans had joined the Federation 50 years ago. Most alien races thought of them as okay traders but not very good fighters. They saw humans as weak and harmless. Jake was fine with that opinion. It made life much easier. Jake walked over to Lisa's station and looked at her readings. Everything seemed normal. No other ships in the area. No unusual energy signatures, just empty space and distant stars. He was about to return to his chair when Karen's voice came through the communication system from engineering. Captain, I'm getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors, Karen said. Her voice sounded calm, but Jake knew her well enough to hear the worry underneath. What kind of readings? Jake asked. Energy signatures that don't match anything in our database. 3 sources. They're big and they're moving toward us fast. Jake felt his stomach tighten. He moved quickly back to his command chair and pressed the communication button. All hands, this is the captain. Go to yellow alert. This is not a drill. The bridge lights changed to yellow and warning sounds echoed through the ship. Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls as she tried to get better sensor readings. Tony checked all weapon systems and made sure their shields were ready. Captain, Lisa said, her voice tight with tension. 3 large ships just appeared on sensors. They weren't there a second ago. Cloaked ships, Jake said quietly. That was never good news. Most peaceful races didn't use cloaking technology. Can you identify them? Running the signatures through our database now, Lisa said. A few seconds later, her face went pale. Sir, they're Krillian battlecruisers. Jake felt ice in his veins. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Krillians. They were a warrior race that looked like giant lizards covered in natural armor. They had advanced technology and loved to fight. More importantly, they had been expanding their territory aggressively for the past few years. Several smaller races had already been conquered or destroyed. Distance and speed? Jake asked. 2 million kilometers and closing fast. They'll be here in less than 10 minutes at their current speed. Jake thought quickly. Terra's pride was a survey ship, not a warship. They had basic shields and light weapons for protection against pirates or dangerous animals on planets. Against 3 Krillian battlecruisers, they might as well throw rocks. Open a channel to the lead ship, Jake ordered. Channel open, sir, Tony said. The main screen flickered and changed. A massive Krillian face appeared. His skin was dark green with black markings around his yellow eyes. Scars covered his snout and forehead. Sharp teeth showed when he smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. Human vessel, the Krillian said in heavily accented English. I am Captain Zexton of the Krillian Imperial Navy. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Jake stood up and faced the screen. He kept his voice calm and professional. Captain Zexton, this is Commander Morrison of the Federation survey ship Terra's Pride. We are conducting peaceful research in Federation space under proper authorization. We have no quarrel with the Krillian Empire. Zexton laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks grinding together. Federation, space? Not anymore, human. The Krillian Empire has decided that your species is too weak to hold such valuable territory. We are taking it from you. This is an act of war against the Federation, Jake said. War? Zexton laughed again. This is not war. This is extermination of vermin. Your pathetic species will make good slaves for those we allow to live. Most of you will simply die. Jake felt anger rise in his chest but kept it hidden. The Krillians thought humans were weak and harmless. Most of the galaxy thought the same thing. They had no idea how wrong they were. We are a peaceful survey mission, Jake said. We have no military value. Perhaps, Zexton said, but you will serve as a message to other humans. When they see what happens to those who resist us, they will surrender much more quickly. The screen went black. A few seconds later, the ship shook violently. Sparks flew from several control panels. The lights flickered. They hit us with ion cannons, Tony reported. Shields are down, main engines are offline. We're dead in space. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa was trying to get communications working. Tony was attempting to bring weapons online. Both of them knew it was hopeless, but they kept trying anyway. That was the human way. Captain, Karen's voice came through the damaged communication system. They're attaching boarding tubes to airlocks 3 and 7. I count at least 20 Krillian soldiers in each group. Jake reached into his jacket and touched a small device hidden there. It looked like a medical monitor, but it was actually a communication beacon. He activated it with a specific code sequence. The message would take several hours to reach human space, but it would get there. All crew, this is the captain, Jake said over the ship's communication system. We are about to be boarded. Follow standard prisoner protocols. Do not resist. Stay alive. That's an order. He caught Karen's eye through the security camera feed and tapped his temple twice. It was an old human military signal that meant, remember, the protocol. Karen nodded once. She understood. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. Weapons fire could be heard in the distance. The Krillians were cutting through the sealed doors between sections. They would be on the bridge in less than 5 minutes. Jake sat back in his command chair and waited. The Krillians thought they were attacking a helpless survey ship crewed by a weak and peaceful species. They believed they were beginning an easy conquest of human space. They had no idea they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The human fleet arrived at the Krillian homeworld like a storm front moving across space. Admiral Collins stood on the bridge of his flagship Terra victorious and watched the enemy planet grow larger on the main screen. Around him, over 500 human warships moved in perfect formation. Below them, the last remnants of the Krillian Imperial Navy waited in desperate defensive positions. Emperor Vextar had assembled every surviving ship in his empire for this final battle. 300 vessels surrounded their homeworld, ready to fight to the death. It was an impressive force that would have terrified any other species in the galaxy. Against humanity's revealed capabilities, it looked pitifully small. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface," the communications officer reported. "It's Emperor Vextar himself." "Put him through," Collins ordered. The main screen changed to show the interior of the Krillian Imperial Palace. Vextar sat on his throne, but the proud emperor from before was gone. This alien looked old and defeated, surrounded by advisors who whispered nervously in his ear. "Admiral Collins," Vextar began, his voice lacking its former strength. "I request an audience to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "You may speak," Collins replied. "My empire surrenders unconditionally. We will withdraw from all human territory and pay whatever reparations you demand. In return, we ask only that you spare our homeworld and allow our people to survive." Collins studied the alien emperor for a long moment before responding. "Your offer is noted. However, surrender is not sufficient. Your empire declared war on humanity with the stated intention of conquest and enslavement. The consequences of that decision cannot be avoided through simple surrender." "What do you want?" "From us?" Vextar asked, fear clear in his voice. "Justice," Collins said simply, "and insurance that this situation will never happen again." The transmission ended. Collins turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the final phase. All ships, target the remaining military vessels. Avoid damage to civilian areas, but eliminate every Krillian warship in the system." The battle that followed was not really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of just how far beyond their opponents humanity had evolved. Krillian ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were destroyed in minutes. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their ships could not escape human pursuit. Their tactics were anticipated and countered before they could be implemented. Within 2 hours, the Krillian Imperial Navy ceased to exist. Not a single human ship was even damaged. The survivors drifted in escape pods, waiting to be collected by human forces. Jake Morrison, now commanding a strike team, led the boarding action on the Imperial Palace. His enhanced soldiers moved through the building's defenses like they weren't there. Krillian guards who had seemed so intimidating weeks ago now appeared slow and clumsy in comparison. They found Emperor Vexatar in his throne room, surrounded by the last of his loyal advisors. The alien ruler stood as the humans entered, trying to maintain some dignity in defeat. "I am Captain Morrison," Jake said as he approached the throne. "You will come with us." "I am the Emperor of the Krillian people," Vextar replied. "I demand to be treated according to the laws of war." Jake stopped a few feet away and looked up at the tall alien. "You forfeited any protection under the laws of war when you declared your intention to commit genocide against humanity. You are a war criminal, nothing more. We were following our nature as warriors. Conquest is the way of the strong." "No," Jake said quietly. "Conquest is the way of the foolish. The truly strong don't need to prove themselves through violence against the weak. They protect those who cannot protect themselves, and only fight when forced to do so." "Then why are you here destroying my empire?" Jake's expression hardened. "Because you mistook our restraint for weakness. You thought our desire for peace meant we couldn't fight. That was your species' last mistake." Vextar was taken into custody along with his remaining military commanders. They were transported to human ships where they would face trial for crimes against sentient beings. The evidence of their planned genocide was overwhelming. There would be no mercy for those who had chosen to threaten humanity's existence. But Jake's mission wasn't finished. Admiral Collins had given him specific orders about how to handle the Krillian leadership. The galaxy needed to understand what happened to those who made the mistake of provoking humanity. In the ship's detention area, Jake met privately with Emperor Vexatar. The alien sat in his cell looking broken and confused. Everything he had believed about strength and weakness had been proven wrong. "I don't understand," Vextar said. "How did we not see what you really were? Our intelligence services studied humans for decades." "You saw exactly what we wanted you to see," Jake replied. "Peaceful traders, weak explorers, harmless researchers. We've been playing that role for 50 years. But why? If you had this power all along, why hide it?" Jake sat down across from the former emperor. "Because the best weapon isn't the one your enemy can see coming. It's the one they never believed existed. Every species in this galaxy has been watching each other, preparing for conflicts with known threats. Nobody was preparing to fight us because nobody thought we were dangerous. So everything was a lie? Not everything. We really do prefer peaceful solutions when possible. We really would rather explore and trade than fight wars. But we also learned something important from our first contact with alien species." "What was that?" "That the galaxy is full of predators who see kindness as weakness and restraint as an invitation to attack. So we became something that could protect not just ourselves but everyone else who believes in peace over conquest." Vextar absorbed this information slowly. "What will happen to my people now? Will you exterminate us as we planned to do to you?" Jake shook his head. "No. Genocide is your way, not ours. Your military has been eliminated and your government will be replaced, but your people will survive. They'll live under human oversight until they prove they can coexist peacefully with their neighbors. And if we refuse to accept your oversight, then you'll discover that what you've seen so far is just a small sample of what humanity can do when threatened. We've shown you our defensive capabilities. Our offensive capabilities are considerably more extensive." The trial of the Krillian war criminals was broadcast throughout the galaxy. Every major species watched as evidence was presented showing the extent of their planned genocide. The alien governments who had dismissed humanity as weak traders now saw detailed footage of human military capabilities that exceeded their worst nightmares. The verdict was swift and unanimous. Emperor Vextar and his military commanders were found guilty of attempted genocide and crimes against sentient beings. They were sentenced to life imprisonment on a secure human facility, where they would spend their remaining years contemplating the consequences of their choices. But the real impact of the trial was political. Every alien government in the galaxy was forced to reconsider their relationship with humanity. Trade agreements that had been negotiated from positions of perceived strength were quietly renegotiated. Territorial disputes involving human space mysteriously resolved themselves in humanity's favor. Military buildups near human territory were suddenly redirected elsewhere. The Galactic Federation called an emergency session to address humanity's revelation of hidden military capabilities. Federation officials who had patronized human diplomats for decades now spoke to them with careful respect. Nobody wanted to be the next species to discover what happened when you made the mistake of threatening humanity. President Carter addressed the Federation Assembly personally. She stood at the podium looking out at hundreds of alien delegates who had never taken her seriously before. Now they hung on her every word. "For 50 years, humanity has been a peaceful member of this federation," she began. "We have honored our treaties, contributed to joint ventures, and settled disputes through diplomatic means whenever possible. That has not changed." Murmurs went through the assembly. If humanity's peaceful nature hadn't changed, what did their military revelation mean? "However," Carter continued, "we have also learned that peace is only possible when those who threaten it understand the consequences of their actions. The Krillian Empire believed they could attack humanity without facing serious resistance. They were wrong. Any other species that makes the same assumption will discover the same truth." She paused to let that sink in before continuing. "Humanity offers friendship to those who seek it, trade to those who deal fairly, and protection to those who need it. But we also offer absolute destruction to anyone who threatens the innocent or mistakes our preference for peace as an inability to wage war." The session ended with no formal resolutions, but the message was clear. Humanity was no longer the junior partner in galactic affairs. They had revealed themselves as the apex predator that had been hiding among the sheep, and now everyone knew better than to provoke them. Jake Morrison returned to his ship and his crew, but their mission was different now. Terra's pride was no longer just a survey vessel. It was a symbol of human power, a reminder to everyone they encountered that humanity's peaceful exterior concealed capabilities that could reshape the galaxy. As they prepared to depart the former Krillian homeworld,